right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Welcome to the best soccer show. The best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go. It's the best soccer show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, NASNradio.com. Jason Davis, Jared Dubois. We are live on the air. We are talking to you from various points in the United States of America. That's where we are. Where are you?
You're going to be more specific. My geography, as we've shown the show, is not that good.
I know. See, if I'm general about it, then you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that probably is the best way to go about it with me. Like,
we
are both somewhere in America.
Right. Then you don't have to form a mental picture and put little dots on it and be confused.
I had an issue just yesterday. I was trying to name, because the only reason I know that there's boroughs in New York, everything I know about New York and boroughs I learned from the Beastie Boys.
Oh, no.
So I'm trying to think, what are the 5 boroughs, right?
Okay.
So I was like, Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens,
Very
Manhattan?
good. There you go.
I don't know what the 5th one is. I could never get the 5th one.
Everybody forgets the 5th one. Staten Island is the 5th one.
I thought Staten Island, but I was like, does an island count as a borough?
It's all part of New York City. It's a big mess of stuff happening. So yeah, your geography skills are not very good, but you have a rough idea where I am in Virginia, near Washington, D.C.
You're on the right side of the map.
And we have a general idea of where you are, somewhere in Southern California, within an hour.
Someplace awesome.
Los Angeles, California. That's where we are. We are here to talk soccer with you on a Wednesday night on the Best Soccer Show. Our phone lines are open as always. Oh, they will be shortly once I remember to fire them up. Nobody gave me a reminder.
201-430-2378. That's 201-430-BEST.
That is the phone number, and we'll get those started up momentarily. There's plenty to talk about tonight, Jared. We're going to run down a list of news. MLS offseason has picked up steam. Things are happening now.
We went from a week ago having nothing to talk about to being a jam-packed night tonight.
Yeah, we were debating, are we going to play some games? Are we going to do something? Are we talking about movies? Are we going to do what's more 90s? And you never know with those things whether people are going to be turning off their podcast machines. Tonight, there's a lot of soccer to talk about. TFC has a new coach, or do they? Kind of half. They kind of half have a new coach. We'll talk about that definitely. The MLS schedule is out. Everybody loves talking MLS schedule, Jared.
You're not bringing up the biggest thing out there.
What's the biggest thing?
We are 1 week tomorrow away from the premiere of the new season of Archer.
The new season of Archer. 1 week from tomorrow, excuse me, like you said.
If people don't know, that is Jason and I, that is like our favorite show. And it's one of the ones we love to use as drops on the show. Archer is the best.
That's the, well, you don't have to pull back the curtain that far and explain it. I think people can understand that we modeled this show on the TV show.
People may not know what Archer is.
You're Lana Kane, right? And I'm Sterling Archer.
There's no way you're the Archer of the relationship.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. Okay, so you can be Cyril then. No?
No, I am not. I'm the Archer of the relationship.
I'm not sure about that. We have to put this to a vote.
My Lord.
The phone lines are actually open now. 201-430-2378. If you have thoughts, let's start in Toronto, Jared. Let's start with what Kevin Payne and Toronto FC have done with their head coaching position. We had heard some rumors that Ryan Nelsen might be coming back to MLS. And to be honest with you, Ryan Nelsen, one of those guys, started his career here, made a name for himself at DC United, goes and does very, very well in England, at Blackburn and Tottenham and QPR now. And it would have been great just to see him come back, just to see Ryan Nelsen, prodigal son kind of situation. I know he's a Kiwi. I know he's from New Zealand, but a prodigal son situation.
One of the best MLS success stories in terms of talent leaving. And I think when you look at Ryan Nelson's story, that might be why someone like a Fredy Montero tried to come here, or Valdez from Philly tried to come here and use this as a springboard to Europe. Ryan Nelson's story was that good.
One of the first guys that did that and really had long-term success, Brian McBride, right around that same time frame. And so it would have been good just to see him come back. And I think a lot of people, I think Ivis had the story, and it was out in the New Zealand press that he was coming back. And at first there was, maybe it's DC United. Maybe he'll be an assistant under Ben Olsen. Maybe he'll be a player assistant. Josh Wolf did that for DC United last year.
Yeah.
And then, he's going to go to TFC. And on the surface, that kind of made sense. Kevin Payne's at TFC now. He's the guy that brought Ryan Nelsen to DC United as part of the brain trust there.
A good assistant under Mariner, maybe.
Sure. A guy that can learn the ropes of coaching in MLS and eventually become a head coach. No. they're going to announce that he's not only the head coach, and that's kind of shocking in and of itself. No experience, no badges. Not that that's a big deal, but no badges. But the other thing is that
he's stinking badges.
Is still a contracted player to Queens Park Rangers. He is still not released by that club. He would retire if he was, but because he's under contract.
You haven't even talked about the other part to me. They did Mariner dirty.
They kind of did do Mariner. I heard some stories about Mariner's behavior up there in Toronto that don't make him look so good, that maybe explain why Kevin Payne pulled the trigger the way he did.
Let's be honest here, dude. Let's be honest, dude. Kevin Payne, you can't go from a coach like Ben Olsen, who's so fashionably fit at all times, go up to Toronto and have a dude rocking shorts and like Elvis Costello glasses on the sideline.
Yeah, and like really baggy, long kind of training tops that don't fit at all. I mean, not that you really.
Here's what we don't know though: is Ryan Nelson's fashion game going to be any better than Paul Mariner's fashion game?
It's a very good question. I have no idea what we're talking about.
I wouldn't be caught dead in a sweater vest.
Actually, you know what? You could do worse than that. I mean, I know Archer says no sweater vests, but he could do way worse than a sweater vest. If Ryan Nelsen showed up, and look, this isn't going to determine necessarily whether Toronto has success right out of the gates because he won't be there. But long term, it's important when Ryan Nelsen wears on the sideline. It's going to matter to Toronto FC. Whether Ryan.
All joking aside, I have for some reason, something about Ryan Nelsen and the way I've watched him play, the intensity and the leadership that he shows on the field, for some reason, same way I felt with Ben Olsen, there was something about him as a person and him as a player I thought would easily transition into the coaching ranks. And I feel the same way about Ryan Nelsen for some reason. I have nothing to show for it. Like you said, no badges, no experience at coaching, but for some reason, it seems like a right fit to me.
If you're gonna take a guy right out of his playing career, remember Jason Christ did this. Ben Olsen actually had a bit of time as an assistant, a year as an assistant before he got the job when Kernan Alpha was fired. But Jay Heaps goes right into it, right? And not a whole lot of success for Jay Heaps. Ben Olsen a little bit more. Jason Christ, a lot of success, obviously. But if you're going to take pluck a guy right out of his playing career and drop him on the sidelines, Ryan Nelsen is a great candidate for that. But that is not the issue. The issue here is that they are half-assing this decision that Kevin Payne obviously had in mind. Ryan Nelsen, from the second he took the Toronto FC president's job, or whatever his title is up there, he wanted Ryan Nelsen to be his head coach. That's fine. Ryan Nelson's not available. Well, we'll work our way around that. We'll do this weird thing where Ryan Nelsen gets the job, but he goes back to London, and they hire his buddy, Fran O'Leary, whose experience is completely in college. His last job was at a Division III college program. That guy will run the team while Ryan Nelson's away playing with QPR. That does not set Toronto FC. Remember how bad they started last year? That does not.
I feel like Kevin Payne's the Tim Burton of MLS. Like Tim Burton finds a way to pigeonhole Johnny Depp into something, and I think Johnny Depp's a great actor, but does he really write for every role Tim Burton's ever filled? He makes a guy fit rather than saying, is it the right fit?
I think that's kind of what it is. I don't think that Kevin Payne wanted to deal with Paul Mariner for 6 months.
He went up there knowing that he wanted Ryan Nelsen as his guy, and he's going to find a way to make Ryan Nelsen fit in that team. Whether it's the right decision or not, and whether it's going to be detrimental, to be honest here. I mean, now, one Ryan Nelson's option, he could retire and get out of his contract at QPR, right?
That's a very good question. I don't know what kind of penalty there is for that. I don't know. I think he may feel obligated. I mean, he did sign a full year contract with QPR. Harry Redknapp needs him because they've had some injuries. He's played very well for QPR in the back line. And at the press conference, he said, I'm playing on glass ankles and glass knees. And so it's obviously a struggle for Ryan Nelsen, but he's performing for a team that desperately needs every point he can possibly get in order to try to remain in the Premier League next year. I don't think it's going to happen. They're going to get relegated.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think Ryan Nelsen played for Redknapp at Tottenham as well. They have a history together, these two players, the coach and manager. Player and coach.
And Nelson said at the press conference in Toronto that he's had discussions with Harry Redknapp. He's had discussions with the owner, who I can't recall his name right now. And it's kind of an ongoing back and forth. I can't imagine why Harry Redknapp would willingly let go of his best defender if he doesn't have to. And while he cannot stop Ryan Nelsen from flying to Toronto and taking a job that he's not going to be available for, it doesn't mean he has to let him out of his contract. And again, I don't know if there's any rule that says he can just retire today and everything's fine. But again, it may just be an obligation thing. Ryan Nelsen, being the kind of guy he is, being the kind of guy who is ready to take a head coaching job will not just say, you know what, I'm leaving tomorrow, do whatever, have fun without me trying to stay up. He's going to do his time at QPR.
There's a part about this, though, that speaks to one of the integrity issues that I like about Ryan Nelsen. He's probably going to finish this out because that's the type of guy he seems to be. He seems to have that kind of clout and that kind of honor. And I think that's some of the things you want to see in a coach and that you would like to see that Toronto's bringing those in. Because if there's anything you say about Toronto in the past, class, dignity, a lot of those things haven't been up there in the upper ranks of Toronto. But if you're talking about the things Toronto need to do at the end of the season, haven't they kind of done it? New GM, cutting ticket prices, new coach, everything that Toronto FC was asking for at the end of the season, they've ticked those boxes off. Now, whether or not they've ticked them off in a manner that the fans are happy with, they've made a lot of these things happen.
But again, the new coach box is not. It's not really ticked off. It's like, like if you were doing a Scantron test in school, you remember those, number 2 pencil, fill in the dot. It's like, half filled and the machine can't read it. That's where Toronto FC is with their head coach right now. Again, if he finishes out his season with QPR, then he's got a team that's already 3 months into their season by the time he shows up. It could be over for them. Playoff dreams go to die in the spring in Toronto. It just doesn't work out for them. Last year was a disaster. If they don't get off to a good start in 2013, what happens to their fans? Are they going to really stay on for this ride that Kevin Payne has set them?
Let's also take a little bit of, let's be a little bit step back here for a moment. There's still 2 months till MLS kicks off. The situation could be resolved by then. I mean, QPR and Ryan Nelsen may come to an agreement, say, hey, we're going to let you out. There's a lot of stuff that could happen right here. Kevin Payne hasn't said 100% that we're waiting till mid-season to get Ryan Nelsen.
And like I said, he's having discussions with the club, so you're right. It's possible he finds a way out. But again, his obligation, he feels an obligation to play for QPR, to try to help them stay up. They need him because he's their best defender. They've got nothing else. Unless they're going to go out and buy somebody in January that can step right in. That's where they are. We had a pick your poison on this topic from James Clay on Twitter. He says, with the draft coming up, and that's the other thing that's happening a week from tomorrow, Jared. Archer debuts and the draft happens.
Not as important.
No. Pick your poison. Worst head coaching situation before the draft. The Red Bulls, no head coach. TFC, half a head coach who won't be there. Or the Impact, who just Are you still saying? Are we still claiming New York no coach? What do you mean claiming no coach? They don't have a coach.
Here, Philip Sousa is going to be the guy. Philip Sousa. I did that earlier too. Paulo Sousa. We're hearing Paulo Sousa is going to be the guy.
But see, here's the thing. They danced around with McAllister and didn't get that deal done, and now he's out. He's off the board as a possibility. Now we hear Paulo Sousa, and who was released by his Hungarian teams, and it's very possible he steps in and he's the coach tomorrow. But even then, let's say they hire Paulo Sousa tomorrow. Still, I think
if they hire Paulo Sousa tomorrow, New York is ahead of TFC for the sheer fact that their coach is here and present then.
Okay.
And Ryan Nelsen's up in the air. But in terms of the head coaching situation, I think is probably the worst at TFC right now. Would be assuming that Ryan Nelsen, if we take the assumption Ryan Nelsen won't be here until his contract's fulfilled at QPR, TFC has the roughest of those three head coaching wise. But when you talk about the draft, I feel Kevin Payne's history drafting DC United is good enough that you don't need Ryan Nelsen there for that.
And that's the thing that you can say. When it comes to day one on the field on March 2nd, when they're in Vancouver and they're opening their season, it's going to be bad that Ryan Nelson's not there on the sideline if he's not. But when it comes to the draft, and I'm sure Ryan Nelsen would like to have some input, and he may have some input via Skype or something. I'm sure Ryan Nelsen would love to have input, but Kevin Payne can run a draft. I mean, and I don't know anything about Fran O'Leary's background in terms of scouting players. Maybe he knows something about these college kids. Maybe he can help run the draft. So I actually think Toronto FC is probably a little bit ahead of both Montreal and New York.
By the way, the name Fran O'Leary, how beat up did that guy get in like elementary school?
He is from Ireland, so I don't know.
But that is such an Irish name, Fran O'Leary.
I know.
I love it.
Montreal hires Marco Schalabam from Switzerland, who's only had experience in the Swiss leagues as far as I can tell, who probably doesn't know much about the draft. I don't think they're going to be particularly ready, although I know they've got some guys on that staff, and they may their staff is kind of up in the air.
Now, if Ryan Nelson's able to get to this team before the start of the season, I think Toronto FC may be in the best head coaching situation. And here's one of the reasons why I like Ryan Nelsen as a hire versus the other two. MLS experience, knows the American player.
But the pick your poison is ahead of the draft. So
Okay.
so ahead of the draft. So let's consider the draft as the tipping point. Who do you want running who would you rather have running a draft? Marco Shalimam in Montreal, Paulo Souza or nobody in New York, and who else? Who else? Mike Petke's there. Okay, maybe that saves it for them. Or an absent Ryan Nelsen / Kevin Payne / Fran O'Leary in Toronto. Who do you want?
I'm actually, when you bring the draft element into it, I think TFC is probably the least. I'm the least worried about TFC because, like I said, Kevin Payne has such a good track record of DC picking players.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, get into MLS schedule. Everybody loves talking about that. Jared's excited. The Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Jason and Jared back on the Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. I'm humble Jason Davis. It's Jared Dubois, star of screen and audio, and I'm going to blow up. I was going to blow up your spot. I won't. I'll wait. Considering what happened.
You can't. I can't. It didn't happen.
No, I know. But there may be things in the future. And okay. Anyway, let's go to MLS draft, which we mentioned in the last segment briefly. Coming up a week from tomorrow. NASN is setting up coverage of the draft, continuous coverage. We're going to have hopefully both you and I will be hosting coverage remotely. Yep. We'll have people on the ground in Indianapolis. We'll have a draft guru of some type. We're pinning that down right now, but we will have a Mel Kiper. The hair will not be as good, I can promise that. But we will have a Mel Kiper to help us break down the college guys being picked in the MLS Super Draft 2000.
So part of that news that we kind of glossed over is the fact that this year, for the first time in, I don't know, ever, for a long time, ESPN will not be doing live on-air coverage of the MLS draft. They'll do spot pickups during SportsCenter, but they're not going to have a dedicated draft show on ESPN or ESPN2 or ESPN News like they've done in the past.
Right. It will not be on broadcast television, which is a bummer, but we're going to help fill the gaps. That's what we're here for. North American Soccer Network, your home for
the hits.
Yeah, well, for the hits too. Let's talk MLS schedule. It dropped today. It dropped on time. Nobody got to play their funny hashtag games on Twitter, Jared. The entire world was disappointed. Ivis has made a career, not a career. I'm kidding. Ivis has made it his thing to do the MLS schedule is late because it didn't happen this year. It was on time. I saw some grousing, and it's to be expected. And I get a little annoyed when MLS fans take their myopic views and turn it into, oh, woe is us. My team got hosed this. My team got hosed that. So, but I don't think it was as bad as in years past. And I think MLS is making progress on the schedule. Now, there are a couple of kinks, as there always are. It's not perfect. It's never been perfect. I'm not sure it ever will be perfect. Even if
also, I mean, you invite the criticism when we still don't have a balanced schedule. We knew it was going to be a balanced schedule. We knew that there's not enough teams. The team count isn't quite right yet. So until it goes back to a balanced schedule, you're inviting even more criticism than normal. But I think the league is learning as it goes a little bit, and they're making some strides. And maybe I'm in the minority here. I dig rivalry week.
Okay.
I love it.
It's one of the things I saw a couple of complaints about, and I think it's part of a kind of an anti-MLS trend when it comes to the way the league has appropriated some of the supporters' culture and turned it into a marketing tool. And we've seen it in the last couple of weeks. MLS made a bid to trademark the name Cascadia Cup, and I had people in Portland and Seattle and Vancouver very, very upset. And I kind of get that. I mean, that was created well before MLS was in the picture up there. The Cascadia Cup existed before MLS was in Seattle and Portland and Vancouver. So I get that. That's a supporters thing. I don't know what MLS intends to do with it, so I'm going to reserve judgment until I hear a statement from them.
Because a buttload of money off of it.
Alexi Lawless, who is engaged with the fans on Twitter and obviously has a pipeline to MLS, he went and asked them. He said, "What are you going to do? What's the deal here?" And they said they'd have comment. I haven't seen it yet, so we'll wait until Alexi unearths whatever MLS says.
What can you do with this? What can you do with it?
I don't know. I think it's probably more about protection than using it as a marketing tool, but maybe not. Maybe not. And look, when you're talking about rivalry week, and the complaints I saw was, don't tell us what, when it's rivalry week, don't manipulate rivalries. We will create our own and blah blah blah. And I get that.
It's not manipulating rivalries. It's putting a spotlight and giving a big stage to something that's already existing. That's what I like. But the only thing that I think got missed in this, when I look at the rivalries and I'm going down all the ones, the league missed one thing. It should be LA versus San Jose, not LA versus Chivas.
And here's the thing: that's where the nitpicking comes in. It's LA versus Chivas because that's the most obvious. But it's not the best game. The best game was going to be. You're coming off the heels of absolutely fantastic games last year between LA and San Jose. I get it. The derby is bigger probably between Chivas and LA, but the game would have been better between San Jose and LA. This is certainly true. But I mean, it makes an orphan out of Chivas. What do you do with Chivas? I don't know. Maybe you match them up with Columbus.
Chivas makes an orphan from themselves.
No, I think San Jose got matched up with Columbus, which is what is that about? But like I said, you've got orphans there. Look, there were some Classico, Super Classico, whatever we're called, Honda Super Classico. I know Honda dropped out. There were some games a couple years ago that were pretty intense. That were pretty good games from a viewer standpoint,
from a violent standpoint.
Well, but you know what that creates, and I'm not saying that MLS players should go out and fight all the time, but it does create intrigue, especially when you have that dynamic of sharing a stadium and being in the same city, etc.
Other than that, though, here's what you can't be mad at rivalry week, people. You can't, because here's the thing: you're going to get 4 back-to-back NBC-produced games that are going to be of good intensity. That's what's to complain about here.
Right. You're
going to get a nationally broadcast game and then 3 subsequent NBC sports broadcasts, and we've seen the production quality they've put behind these things. I'm stoked.
I'm excited. I don't care if I think Rivalry Week is an ESPN production usually. I don't know if they had to get permission from ESPN.
Listen, market it. You can't be mad at a entity, a media entity that's choosing to market your product.
No, I think that MLS's greatest asset, and they know this, is their supporter culture. Okay, it kind of happened really without them kind of taking a direct hand in it. Now they have it. They're trying to leverage it. On one hand, I get it from the supporters' viewpoint. We don't want to be taken advantage of. We don't want the thing that we created to be used by the league to.
Here's the real thing, Jason. Here's the real thing that people aren't talking about. It's that dumbass mindset of U.S. soccer where football does it. College football has rivalry week, so we can't do it.
Well, I think it's part of it. I think that's part of it. Here's the NBC release on Rivalry. They call it Rivalry Weekend. Unprecedented wall-to-wall coverage on NBC and NBC Sports Network on Saturday, March 16th, during which the networks will cover all MLS games that day. NBC begins the day with the New York Red Bulls versus DC United at 12:30 from Red Bull Arena.
Matchup.
NBC Sports will air 2 more games that day, beginning with Sporting Kansas City versus Chicago and Seattle.
Is that a rivalry? Is that a rivalry?
Like they're both Midwest teams. I don't know that either one of them has a natural rival. I don't know that Columbus and Chicago are any more rivals than Columbus and Chicago and Kansas City. I don't know. I don't know that Kansas City.
I think it'll be a good game though. But
yeah, no, it'll be a good game. And Seattle and Portland later that night. After here's the part I like. After calling the Red Bulls DC United match, NBC Sport Group's MLS announced team of Arlo White and Kyle Martino and Russ Thaler will travel to the new NBC Sports Group studios in Stamford, Connecticut to host a studio whip around showcasing coverage of the rest of the day's MLS games.
This is what I like. Finally, MLS has a helicopter on standby. Finally.
It has to be a helicopter, right? It has to be.
Yeah.
I know it's not an incredibly long drive from Harrison, New Jersey.
No, you can't take that chance, though.
No, you absolutely can't take that chance. You got to get him in the copter. I
love this. I love that somewhere outside the stadium, there's going to be blades spinning, just a helicopter gassed up and ready to go. What man in his life has never wanted a gassed up chopper ready to go?
I demand video of this event. Like I want to see Kyle Martino ducking under the blades.
I'm getting like visions of like the movie Commando, where like Arnold Schwarzenegger gets in the copter and stuff. Oh, I like it.
Yeah, anything with a helicopter gets the juices flowing a little bit. Look, I get the rivalry weekend thing from the MLS standpoint. I get, I think that this schedule for the most part makes a lot of people happy. There are a lot of nationally televised games. That's something we can all be excited about. I don't have the number in front of me. 90% of the games will be on weekends or holidays. I can't remember what the number was last year. I think it was right around that time. So that's
one thing I did see, Jason. I apologize that I don't know this off the top of my head. I apologize also if I'm putting you on the spot. What is the calendar situation this year with the FIFA, the Hex games?
Well, MLS did take pains to say that they don't have any games that directly conflict. That doesn't mean they're not on the day after or the day before. Yeah. But there are no games, as far as I can tell, that will be directly happening on the same day. I think that's I had some details in front of me. I seem to be missing them. I'll keep looking for them.
That's okay. But while we're talking about schedule, one thing that leaked out over yesterday, actually, before all this schedule came out, is that people started floating around screenshots of Ticketmaster selling tickets to the All-Star game and broadcasting it as being at Livestrong Park in Kansas City.
Right. Yeah, that's big news. I mean, that certainly Livestrong deserves that kind of game. If we're going to have an All-Star game, Livestrong is a place to have it. No idea who the opponent will be. I honestly don't care. I'd like to be there for the event. I went to the All-Star game last year in Philly. It was a great time. I can only imagine it will be something a level beyond at Kansas City. Because
here's the thing, though, Jason. If we're going to get the All-Star game, I'm not trying to get there and not be in the parties. If we're going to get there, we got to make sure we're greasing palms and know some doormen and get into the parties.
Look, you're the glad hander of the group. You're the schmoozer. You're that guy of our little tandem here. I would think that you're
what you inadvertently just did. You made me the face, like the A-team face role of the show. I love it. Thank you.
All right, absolutely. You be face. I'll be Hannibal. We'll make Trevor Murdoch. How about that?
Nice. I like that. Speaking of copters.
Yeah. Can you fly a helicopter, Trevor? Can we get you to do that? Can you whisk us around around Kansas City?
I'm digging though, KC. Everything I hear about KC before big game days with the U.S. national team, anything that the KC has hosted, I always hear about how great the bar atmosphere is the night before, the communal experience of fans coming together. I always hear that KC is a great spot for that. Would love to get there myself and experience it, but I'm just stoked that they picked that venue. I think it's a really good choice for MLS.
Absolutely. Great choice. I have to see how that works out with, like I said, with the opponent and that kind of thing. I don't even remember. When did MLS announce that last time? I don't know. I mean, obviously it was Chelsea. Don't think they're going to do Chelsea again. Just yesterday, Jared Dubois did an interview with John Hackworth. Was that yesterday? It was yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. Yeah, they came out today, or last night. Yeah.
It came out last night. Philadelphia head coach John Hackworth. And I just wanted to touch on it. First of all, go back and listen to it if you haven't. Don't do it now. Do it after the show. It's a very good interview. Jared touches on a bunch of different subjects. One thing he did not know about, so I'm going to throw this out now. You didn't know that Valdez might go on loan back to Colombia. You did not know that at the time.
Yeah, that dropped a little bit after that. I wish I had known because it would have been a good question to kind of talk to him about. But rumors right now that I think he's going to be going to Santa Fe, is it?
Santa Fe was the last team I heard, but maybe a couple of teams.
Big loss for the Union. Big loss for the Union.
Yeah, look, I mean, they've got Bakari Sumari. They got Jeff Park. I'm missing somebody right off the top of my head. I mean, they have some guys that can fill in that spot. But Carlos, he was an all-star level player. He was, he was a first 11 caliber MLS defender last year. I'm more interested in the reasons behind this. I mean, we see Fredy Montero go to Millonarios on loan.
Saying he wants to play Copa Libertadores. He wants to get a different level of play. What I think it is in the background, maybe just trying to get more exposure to Peckerman, see if maybe he can break that lineup in Colombia, which is a very good team right now. I'm not sure if he's going to have the success at that or not. But what I'm kind of bummed to see is that that's two big-name Colombians that were big parts of their team and entertaining parts of their team last year leaving the league, and that's unfortunate.
Oh, there was a talk about a wave of Colombians, and there certainly was kind of an influx of Colombians. It's distressing to see two of the best Colombians in the league go back to Colombia, not because their teams don't want them anymore, not because they're not good enough, but because they view Colombia as a place
opportunities better
in order to get to Europe, which I'm sure both of those players want to do, and or make the national team, which Valdez is already in the mix. Maybe Peckerman has told him, if you're not playing somewhere out other than MLS, you're not going to be in the national team. That could be part of this as well, which is distressing to me. But if this is about getting to Europe, Jared, does it bother you that both of these guys seem to believe that going back to Colombia and playing at clubs in Bogota or wherever is a better...
Here's part of this. Fredy Montero was, 4 years in MLS, I believe, 4 years with Seattle. In the last 4 years, Colombia has had a huge resurgence in terms of international pedigree. I mean, the attention that their national team's getting, the amount of players that are moving overseas. Colombia is the new it girl in terms of South America right now. So it kind of makes sense that you see all these players. I mean, Falcao is a big part of that. I mean, the attention that he's getting is a big part of that. So these guys are seeing that movement go a different direction now. It's going through Colombia again, kind of like it did in the mid 90s, where all the Colombian players are coming out through there. And I think they just see a little different way that they can work right now. I think they made a good effort. Fredy Montero had lots of interest, from what we understand. Like how many times did you hear him rumored with Russian teams and stuff like that? They did get attention here, but you can't deny the fact that there's a movement going on in Colombia, and it's going through that country.
Yeah, I think Peckerman is a big part of this, at least for Valdez. I do think that MLS being off schedule from the rest of the world mostly is an issue probably. So I think it's troubling. It's a big loss for Philadelphia. It's rough to see a guy like that go. It's rough to see Fredy Montero go. I like watching Fredy Montero play. I wasn't always his biggest fan, but I honestly appreciated his talent and what he could do.
The writing was on the wall for that one. I mean, you just had a feeling that Fredy Montero and Seattle were going to have to part ways at some point. It's kind of interesting he didn't make another move to MLS, but he's going backwards. But if you guys want to weigh in on this, we are live tonight. You can call in 201-430-2378. Lines are open. If you want to talk Colombians, you want to talk scheduled, you want to talk coaches, whatever you want to talk tonight, give us a call in, and we're more than welcome to bring you on the line.
Let's touch on a couple other things that you talked to John Hackworth about. You mentioned you did ask about Fredy Adu, what his status was, and while Hackworth was completely non-committal, it did not sound good for Fredy Adu in Philadelphia. It sounds like
the what I got from the undertone there is that he obviously said nothing's in stone, but it made it kind of sound like they're more wrapping things up than building things up with him.
Yeah, look, I don't know where Fredy is right now. I have to go check my Instagram, but I know he was in Turkey for a little while training. He's been bouncing around during the offseason, getting some training stints. He very well could move somewhere. I don't know, and I have no idea what the best place for Fredy Adu to play is. I mean, is it another MLS team? Is that a good idea? Is going back to RSL at this point in his career, having already been there? Is that do they have
the question you have to ask yourself is who wants to take a risk? Who wants to take a risk out there? And the sad thing is, Philly's a team that should be taking a risk, and they're not going to take another risk on him. So, what team out there needs to take a risk? A TFC, they got nothing to lose, but I don't see Kevin Payne just going all in on a player like this.
Well, Kevin Payne's got experience with Fredy Adu.
I know. Do you think he wants another taste of that?
Probably not. Probably not. A couple of things I noted from the interview. Again, go back and listen to it to get the full effect. I'm working off a memory here. Jared, you love saying Jack Mac. Can you not say McInerney? Can you not say McInerney? Can you
Why would I say McInerney when I can say Jack Mac?
And everybody knows who you're talking about. It must be nice to have a ready-made nickname like that. Just be.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to call him Jack.
It's not like me where I had to invent my own nickname. You who are unnicknameable, Jason Davis.
Just doesn't work. I don't know. It doesn't stick.
Still haven't got one.
The return of Sebastian Letou is also another talking point there in Philadelphia, and Hackworth seemed very high on the possibility of getting Latu working with McInerney and the other talent that they have in that team, and turning them into something in 2013.
Very interested in his response, saying that I kind of asked him, listen, you got Casey, you got Latu, you got McInerney. Are you going to, is this for competition? Is Latu going to take a step back? And he's saying that they're going to find a way to get all three of those players on the field at once. And that's what they're lacking in the back right now. Obviously, I know they brought in Jeff Park, but Valdez is going to be a big step back for them in a number of ways, losing that leadership back there. They're going to be stacked up front. You got young players like Farfan, Hopino. I mean, you got these young kids out there that want to create, and I think Philly's going to be a fun team to watch. And I did also ask him about the draft. We kind of remember that John Hackworth, U17 coach 5 years ago, those kids are coming out of college right now. The ones that he was in charge of developing a pool and running at Bradenton, those kids are coming out of college this year.
He definitely had a knowing kind of chuckle in his voice when you asked him that question. It struck him. I think he kind of was with you on that. Like, okay, I know these kids, I can do something.
And then asking him about like Caleb Porter, who has the bigger, that's one of the most fun things for me to watch this year in the draft. Caleb Porter versus John Hackworth. These guys both know these players so well. Seeing who gets to open the upper hand and who's going to come out the bigger winner in this draft. It's a fantastic storyline to watch going forward.
Couple of young coaches in MLS, always exciting to see guys kind of make their names. I mean, whether or
Here's
not
the next evolution for John Hackworth. You got to ditch the team blazer. John Hackworth's dressing sharp, except for the team blazer. Got to drop that. It's too Novak. It's too Novak.
These guys have to, soccer coaches are the one place. I mean, NFL coaches are wearing Reebok stuff and they're told they have to do that by the league. Baseball coaches wear uniforms. Basketball coaches, they wear suits. I guess they could probably do the same thing there. Soccer coaches, go get yourself a deal with a tailor in town. Find somebody that will put some good threads on you.
Teal Bunbury. It sounds like a great clother, like a great tailor. Teal Bunbury. Doesn't it sound like a tailor?
Where did that come from? You just pulled that out of your, okay.
I got my suit at Teal Bunbury.
Actually, it does kind of sound good. Yeah. That sounds like. But I mean, get yourself a clothier who can put some nice threads on you, and take a step up. Take a step up in the world, John Hackworth. Take a step up.
There's no excuse for Montreal with all the French influences they have there. Should have the best clothes of everybody.
Oh, I bet you he'll be fly. I bet you he'll be fly up there. Let's take a break. When we come back, Jurgen Klinsmann talking about the national team. Eight or nine guys from that roster going to Honduras. I want to talk about Caleb Porter. You mentioned him. Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV, NASNradio.com. Jason and Jared back on the Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. We are talking about soccer because we're called the Best Soccer Show, and it'd be really weird if we were called the Best Soccer Show when we talked about knitting or curling or something. Actually, that would be like...
I kind of dig curling. Is there a part of you that just really wants to do curling?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Is it? There's something not cool about it, but there's something so damn cool about it.
I get sucked in when the Olympics come around, and I know Bo Durr, who does all of those weird Olympic stuff. I know he would probably say, "Oh, this is curling on somewhere else. I could go find it if I really wanted to." It has to be on the TV in front.
I don't know that I want to watch it, but I want to do it.
No, it's hilarious to watch, and to be honest,
shuffleboard on ice, awesome.
It's pretty fun to watch, and
only a drunk Canadian would think of that.
But it would be like really fitting of the times and completely ironic to be the Best Soccer Show and talk about curling the entire time. Like that would fit exactly what the ethos of the world happens to be right now. A completely new generation would appreciate us for that.
It's so ironic.
Speaking of new generation, coaches, you mentioned, we talked about John Hackworth. You mentioned Caleb Porter, officially unveiled as the head coach of the Portland Timbers, although we knew he was coming for the last 5 months. He arrives in Portland. He holds his introductory press conference yesterday. I watched some of it. I listened in on some of it when I could. Caleb Porter likes to talk, and he likes to, he will expound on what he wants to do with that team. Talked a lot about Darlington Nagbe, talked a lot of, a little bit about Danny Mwanga.
Just some knowledge on Chris Boyd.
Basically dropped the axe on Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd is not going to last in Portland. It's over for Chris Boyd, whether or not he lands in another.
It was kind of funny. He was almost like, yeah, Chris Boyd, we're really interested in running here. So, Chris, sorry. I don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah, it's just not going to work out for Chris Boyd in Portland. So it'll be interesting to see how Caleb Porter gets along. I mean, that's a situation. We talked about pick your poison with TFC and Red Bulls and Montreal. That's almost a perfect, for a first-year head coach, it's almost a perfect draft situation. They've got their guy. He's there. He's going to be at the Combine. He'll be in Indianapolis. He knows all of those players because he's coached against or coached most of them at some point. He coached he comes off the U23s. So, he's got some experience coaching a little bit of an older player. There's some question about whether or not Caleb Porter can handle full professionals. And going into the Olympic qualifying tournament, there were questions whether or not he could handle professionals that were under 23 years old. I think he did okay with that. They just didn't get the job done. And he admitted to it in the press conference. He said, "We failed. That's on me." So give Caleb Porter credit for that.
Yeah, I think so. But more than anything, I think it was nice to hear him reinforce the style of play we were hoping they were going to go for. He's talking about attacking. He's talking about speed. He's talking about dynamic movements. He's talking about being entertaining, and that's what we expect from the coach of Akron, to be honest with you. And he's got some of those pieces there to pull that off.
He did say that somebody asked him, are you going to play like Barcelona? He said, "We'll never be Barcelona." He flat out said, "We'll never be Barcelona."
That is not a crime to say.
That is not wrong to say. I mean, my joke on Twitter was, defeatist. But he knows. And he said what he said was he's not going to go out with the personnel that Portland has, and they will, they're going to continue to work on their roster. But he did say they're not going to go out with the personnel that Portland has and try to play some tiki-taka style. They're going to work with the personnel they've got to be the most effective offensive team, most effective team overall, to win games. Caleb Porter made clear to say, my job is to win games, and that's good to hear. Because you don't want a guy, you don't want some high-minded, stylistic guy to come in and try to do something that's just not going to work out. MLS is about winning games. We'll get there stylistically eventually. And
I see Portland taking on a very similar style to that of what we saw LA play when they were successful last season, what I call a puff give, where it's kind of like in the midfield, there's a couple short passes, then they release that attack.
Why have you never brought that up before? I've never heard you say that. That's an amazing.
I never thought about it till right now. I don't know.
It's an amazing name for that offense. Yeah, style.
But you know what I'm talking about, though, where you have that Juninho and Sarvas and combination where it's a couple short passes through midfield, then boom, release up the field. Boom, release. And I think that Portland has those horses to play that style. What they need is to find those couple guys in the center that can take that little bit of pressure off the ball, tease the defense in to a high line, and then boom, release the horses behind it. puff give.
I do believe that the Timbers are on the verge of announcing a DP because Merritt Paulson's all over Twitter dropping hints left and right. He didn't say who. He wouldn't give anything up on that front. I don't know if there are rumors out there in Timbers land. Maybe we should.
We should probably let some people down. It sounds like it's probably not going to be Nick Diskerud. There's more and more chatter coming around that he's probably going to re-sign with Rosenborg.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be Diskerud. I don't know that.
He would have been a DP anyway. But.
He might be a young DP. Does he qualify? Speaking of young DPs, I forgot to mention. I had it on the outline. DC United has signed a young DP, Rafael from, is it Bahia? I'm going to say Bahia. I have no idea. I don't know Portuguese very well.
Is there more Rafaels or more Ronaldos in Brazil? There seems to be quite a lot.
I bet you there's more Ronaldos and Ronaldinhos and variations thereof.
Yeah.
I imagine. What we need, though, we've got a Leonardo. We've got a Rafael. We need a Donatello, and we need who am I missing?
Ooh, Michelangelo.
Michelangelo in MLS to complete the
my kid would lose it. My kid would lose. You know how much of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles my kid's into right now?
How amazing would a midfield of Leonardo, Rafael, Donatello, and Michelangelo be? How amazing would that be?
Oh, God. And then you play for a team called the Shredders or against a team called the Shredders.
Sure, something like that. Let's move on from Caleb Porter, former U.S. national team U23 coach, to the full U.S. men's national team, who is getting ready for their training camp, already started training. They're doing fitness right now in L.A. with this roster that Jurgen Klinsmann has called up. The latest news out of L.A., Jared, is that Klinsmann saying that 8 or 9 of the guys in this roster will be making the trip to Honduras. Does that number seem high, low, or just about right for you?
I think that's just about right, to be honest with you. I think it's more 8 or 9 guys have a shot, but I think that's probably pretty close. If I was going to pick 8 off the top of my head, I would go Omar. Beasler has a chance. I would say Beasler has a chance as a backup at that position.
Let's do this. You start over, and I'll ding when I agree with you. How about that?
Okay, Omar Gonzalez.
Ding.
Matt Beasler.
Ding.
Beckerman.
Ding.
Zuzi.
Ding.
That's 4. Josh Gatt.
Ding. That's 5.
Eddie Johnson.
Ding. 6.
Miss Dixerud.
Okay, I don't have him. I have Bill Hamid.
Oh, Bill Hamid. Nah, that could definitely be one. And that last one's kind of up for grabs. I think the last one, I don't know if it's a person, but it's a spot. Who's going to stand out over this camp is that last spot. I don't know that there is another guy that's the guy that's going. Now, you could say a guy like Benny Feilhaber has World Cup experience. He's gone to a World Cup before. He's been there. He's a guy that you can take for depth for sure. But is he going to stand out? That's the question.
Yeah, my wild card, just purely random, at random, I guess. And because I think that if Klinsmann has a soft spot for him, he called him in. Edson Buttle. I have no reason to think he'll be good enough.
Oh, my God.
I just think that's the wild card. And don't be shocked if Edson Buttle...
Worst pick since Joey picked Pacey.
Well, okay, but look, out of the rest of these names, I mean, if you're going to take a keeper, it's probably Hamid. If you're taking defenders, we've already said Gonzalez and Beasler. Are you going to take Betishore? Are you going to take De La Garza? No. Jeff Park? Probably not.
It depends if you need to. Here's the thing about those other guys you just named in the defense. Who's the backup to Fabian Johnson right now? I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. It's a right back somewhere. That's what it is.
Well, I mean, it could be, yeah.
Michael Parkhurst could do it. Lehigh, I don't think he's showing enough form right now.
Edgar Castillo could step in.
Edgar Castillo could definitely be that guy, but he's not in this camp. Obviously, Mexico season just started back up, so you're not probably expecting him in.
It's not like you have an obvious candidate to play wrong-footed in this line. I mean, in this team, Justin Morrow.
I think we've seen Parkhurst do it in the past and have a decent run. I think Parkhurst serviced him so well. Timmy Chandler's played on the left in the past and done decent. The problem is there's no natural choice for him after him. Edgar Castillo looked good last couple of times with the national team, but a lot of us remember the really poor form we saw over a year ago. And let's be honest, a guy can change. And a guy can get better.
Sure.
But Edgar Castillo hasn't shown me enough at the national team level consistently to say that he's the clear number 2 to Fabian Johnson.
Yeah, and look, out of the midfield, I mean, I think we've identified the main candidates. You threw in Mix, that's fine. I could possibly see that. I'm not sure he's quite there yet in Klinsman's estimation. Kyle Beckerman is the obvious guy that'll, almost certain to go. I think Josh Gatt goes. I think he showed enough in Russia. Depends on how he plays against Canada if he gets a shot. But he's speed and he's width and you need that, especially with Landon Donovan not in the team.
It's funny you put Buttle with the word wild card next to it. I just saw that in the notes. It reminds me of Always Sunny in Philadelphia when Charlie Day labels himself the wild card. Do you watch Always Sunny?
I've watched some. It's been a while, but yeah.
Where Charlie Day's the wild card, so he just does whatever the hell he wants in any scenario and claims wild card.
Do you think Brad Davis has a shot? I mean,
Here's the thing, Brad Davis, you want to say yes because this is a guy that given if you need 20 minutes at the end of a game, you're going to get a consistent 20 minutes from Brad Davis. He's a guy that is the very essence of a MLS veteran. You're going to get what you get from Brad Davis. You're not going to get any kind of drop off. The question is what Brad Davis gives you, first of all, right for the U.S. attack, and secondly, good enough for the international level? That's what I don't know right now, and I got to see this camp, this next game, and kind of see what Brad Davis gives us.
Look, and we've, there's a lot of talk about how some guys, their club game just doesn't translate, and it doesn't necessarily mean they're not good enough. Although, Wondolowski is the obvious example. If you're a step slow, I mean, guys like Jason Christ scored a bunch of goals in MLS, and it never happened national team wise. It doesn't mean that they're not great players.
Or Lassiter, same thing.
It just means that there's something different about the pace. There's something different about the space available. There's something different about the intensity that changes.
Something different for some players. Let's be honest. There's something different mentally for some players as well to overcome the challenge of knowing that you're playing at a higher level. Are you going to take that stress well? Are you going to not let that get to you?
Are you going to be comfortable in Honduras in front of a hostile crowd versus we're on an away trip to Red Bull Arena to DC to RFK Stadium this week? I mean,
there's 1,500 people watching you.
Right. Just a couple of quotes from Klinsman. I mean, he's making this into kind of a preparation camp for Honduras. At least that's the dressing he's giving it. That's kind of how he's wrapping it. I'm not sure that's what even if 8 or 9 guys go, Jared, I mean, that means they're preparing for Honduras, but does that really mean that this is some kind of wider, we're going to roll it straight in kind of thing? This is a little bit of a different type of camp, he said. He told a group of reporters, it's not really a preseason camp like it has always been in recent years. So he's trying to ratchet it up from the Bob Bradley era. Because of that February 6th date.
Is that a dig? Is that a dig at Bob Bradley?
I think what he's saying is that because they've got a qualifier so close to the end of this camp that you might as well just roll it over and that the intensity needs to be higher. It's actually a World Cup qualifying preparation camp, so we work as hard as we can in a very short amount of time. Here's the thing about that, and there are guys that aren't there yet. Graham Zusi is not there yet. Graham Zusi is at West Ham, and we'll talk about that shortly. They're doing fitness stuff. And I'm not a professional soccer player, never was, didn't reach a very high level. But from what I understand from people like Jimmy Conrad and watching this stuff on Twitter, they don't believe that this stuff is absolutely necessary, that they're wasting time in training by going through fitness tests for a week, fitness training for a week, rather than getting their foot on the ball. I
spoke shortly with Jimmy today, and the way he phrased it to me is that it's almost insulting as a professional soccer player that you need to do 3 a days at a national team camp. I mean, and I get that. I mean, these guys are coming; they're professionals, for God's sakes. And I kind of wonder, does Klinsman have a disconnected view of himself and who he was as a player before, and then he just doesn't find anyone else up to what he thinks he was then, so he pushes these guys that hard?
Possible. That happens. I mean, it absolutely can happen. Guys that are great players do not transition well to coaching because they hold the players that they're coaching to a standard that those players aren't capable of reaching, which is their standard, which is from when they were playing. Jurgen Klinsmann was a world-class player. So can he legitimately coach guys that are far below that level without getting frustrated?
But here's the thing. This is what the U.S. is known for. If there's anything we're good at, it's this. We're in shape. We're athletes. We run.
Well, I mean, look, these are MLS guys for the most part, and the Scandinavian guys are on break as well. Maybe they've flagged a little bit in their fitness, but you would have to imagine that 2 weeks of training or 3 weeks of training, if you started now, would get them back up to speed. Maybe not game fitness quite there yet. I mean, who goes into the first qualifier of the year with just some training and is completely ready? I mean, you're calling in guys from Europe for that game. You're calling in the best from Europe. Those guys.
Yeah, but separate from this, Jason, not just talking about right now, that the fact that they're in the gym this week. We're talking about back during the qualifying portion, the summer, 3-a-days.
No,
3 days leading up to the qualifying games. I mean, it's not just right now. This is a symptomatic thing that Klinsmann does. And if I'm a player, it almost seems like you're punishing them.
It's all kumbaya and we're about spirit and effort and everything else. But when you don't treat these guys with the respect that they think they deserve, you could turn some off. I'm not saying he's turned any of them off yet, but you never know. Best Soccer Show, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Don't go anywhere. Be right back. There's your song, man. There it is.
That's
right
me,
there.
baby. That's me. That's my entrance.
I told my wife that story. She's like, "Oh, you could definitely pull that off."
Me or you?
No, me.
You think you could pull out? You think you pull off the Archer roll? You think you can pull off my beaded curtain entrance music?
Well, you did come up with the idea. So if this was some kind of video shoot, we were going to do that. If it was the Best Soccer Show promo and we were using that song,
I want to walk off, Mr. Davis. I want to walk off.
You would be the guy that got to do that. Now I'd have to be somewhere looking cool. I'd have to be, I don't know, chilling on the leather couch,
You'd be my Nate dog. You'd be like in the corner, just like, velvet voice in the corner with your like hat pulled down over your face a little bit, sipping on a cocktail with 2 ladies on your arm.
But you're relegating me to sidekick now.
You got a mink on. For God's sakes, you'd have a mink on.
Vocal accompaniment. I can't say that.
Listen, it doesn't mean you'll be the sidekick in that role because I'm so flashy coming through the beaded curtain. There's no place for you other than that sidekick role. After that, you can be the lead.
This is getting out of hand. Quickly. Let's talk about Graham Zusi, who is in London with West Ham on trial. As far as I know, he's still there, joining the U.S. men's national team camp in L.A. in a couple of days. I'm guessing beginning next week. By all reports, Graham is impressing over there for Sam Allardyce. It makes you wonder, is an offer coming? Is Sporting Kansas City going to have to seriously consider losing one of their most important players? What kind of damage?
Second. Let's be honest here. This would be the second big player that they're losing. I mean, and the complement to the one they already lost in Espinoza.
You had those two guys working in tandem.
So let me ask you a question then, Jason. If you're Merritt Paulson, Heinemann, and you know that there's a chance that Zuzi's going on trial a month ago, and you know how good your player is, do you make that Benny Feilhaber move because you're worried you might lose Zuzi?
I think there might be a little something to this. I think there might be a little something to the thought, okay, Graham Zusi's going to go try to spread his wings. Now, they've got a report I read today said he's got 3 years left on his contract. This was out of England. I don't trust it at all, but I don't know how much time he has. I don't think he's got his contract up anytime soon. So they could just bring him back. They could turn down whatever offer West Ham throws at him. But if West Ham says, here's $5 million, is Sporting Kansas City really going to stand in the way of Graham Zusi jumping to Europe for that amount of money? Probably not. He's 26 years old. This is his time. He's getting national team time. He is going to get a waiver for his work permit. I don't have any doubts about that. Yeah. So I think the Feilhaber thing could be tied in, Jared. Very well could be.
It definitely could be. I mean, I don't think that's too much of a stretch. And if it doesn't come through, I still like what they got going on. I think those are, once again, 2 really good complementary players. And like we said last week on Sunday when we were previewing the roster and the upcoming game, if I'm Sporting Kansas City, I love that those 2 guys are getting 20 days together. Well, less than that because he's not going to be there for the first week, but 2 weeks together of playing together at a high level going into the season. I want to see those 2 guys on the field together in the starting lineup against Canada somehow.
Okay, well, that's it'd be an interesting thing to see. So if Zusi makes this move, I think okay. Look, there's not even been an offer yet. There's not even a rumor that West Ham's making an offer. All we know is that he's there.
I think Zuzi's game translates well to the EPL. He's smart on the ball, doesn't lose it often. I mean, he's not going to be super flashy, but he can hold the ball, move the ball, and I think those are some of the qualities that I think succeed in the EPL.
Are you at all worried about Allardyce being the guy he would be playing for? Is any concern there at all?
I mean, other than dietary, no.
Not playing the most attractive style of soccer in the world. I mean, he can be effective for them. I'm not saying he can't be, but is he going to be?
It's a big move. That's a huge club in England. That's one of the big clubs in London. I think whether or not I don't think a coach ruins a player in a year. There might be an issue of maybe he doesn't get playing time, and that's the coach's decision. I get that, but I don't think he's going to make him a worse player. If anything, hopefully he gets there, he gets some games, and he gets exposure, and he moves on to somebody else 2 years from now. But Graham Zusi already 26, 27 at this point. 26. Yeah, so I mean, he's got to make a move now while he's still young enough. Otherwise, he's going to be someone like a Brian McBride gets over there, has success, but so late that he doesn't get to have a full good career of it over there.
No, I absolutely agree with that. Other news out of England: Stuart Holden played 65 minutes in a reserve match for Bolton Wanderers against Oldham. This is big news for Stu's continued advancement towards becoming, getting back on the field full time in the first team at Bolton. It's not to the point where I'm anywhere near excited in terms of national team. I'm just glad he's getting to this point. He may never, and I'm not hoping for this, so don't yell at me, but he may never play for the national team again, depending on how good he is. Now, let me say that the reports were pretty good. I don't know.
Did you read the comments? Did you read the comments of the manager?
I did
comments
not.
of the manager were very positive, very kind to Stuart Holden's play. He was very happy with what he got out of him for 65 minutes, and more than anything, it sounds like he came out unscathed, and that's one of the best things you say. And also, he said that he's coming back to this team in much better fitness than he had hoped, and he said it was a credit to the medical staff there that Stuart Holden looks like he's almost ready.
It's good. It's just good news to hear. It's just good news to hear. And if he gets back and he's playing for Bolton as a starter in their first 11, then we'll start talking about whether or not he can deserve a national team call up and that kind of thing. Hopefully they can get back to the Premier League. I have no idea where they sit in the championship right now.
I don't know. I mean, if you wanted news on Stuart Holden from American perspective, go check out Lion of Vienna Suite. That's our boy Mark Wise Bolton blog. He has a pretty good job of covering that there.
And last but not least for this Wednesday night, as MLS pushes forward on New York 2 on a stadium in Queens, Flushing Meadows Park, whatever it is. I'm not good on detailed geography. I know the boroughs, but I'm not good on the detailed geography. I just know it's
we've already established. I'm impressed I came up with Queens.
Yeah. A Queens councilman has stated that, first of all, he prefer a city field share, which isn't going to happen. But he did say that if a team does end up in Queens, he wants it to be the Queens whatever. His quote was, the Queens whatever.
Oop.
So, I don't think MLS is going to go for this. I think they want New York in the name.
Grown-ass man with stubble on his face wants the word Queen associated with it.
No, look, come on. As the borough of Queens, I don't think there's anything wrong if they were like Queens FC. I think that's boring as hell. But if they were Queens,
when you look at Queens Park Ranger, got Queen in the name, but at least you're a Ranger by the end of it.
So maybe this team could be Queens Park Rangers then. But
I don't know what I don't. All the Queens men. I don't know. What are we going to call this thing? I don't know.
The Queens men was my joke. Like there are.
You said that
on Twitter. There are a bunch of possibilities. There's some very good joke possibilities out there. I like the fact the guy's sticking up for his borough. That he's saying, look, if you're gonna
listen, listen. As a son of my dad was a city councilman in my city. Okay, I can tell you right now, that's for votes.
No, I'm sure it's grandstanding. It's completely for grand. I mean, yeah. He's just flying the flag of Queens to get some support. I get it. I'm not saying that this isn't some political move. I'm just saying it's interesting. And I don't believe for a second that MLS is going to sign off on naming this team in New York City, which is what they want. Anything Queens. Yeah,
Queens Cosmos is a hard thing to say.
Why would you want to name? Yeah, well, I don't know. If it's the Cosmos, it's got to be New York Cosmos because then you're not leveraging that name very well.
Yeah, so, I don't see a situation where that's really going to work out. But here's a question though: if naming the team with the word Queens in it somewhere could get you more votes and bring the community on your side, would you do it?
Wait, what? Say that again. I wasn't paying attention.
They're getting a lot of resistance to being in Queens from the public. If they chose to put the name in it, and that was the way to sway the public in the direction of this, do you do it?
Yes, I think you would do it. If you're MLS and that's the only way that you get it done, then you go ahead and with Queens. I mean, Queens, New York FC or something. I mean, that sounds dumb, but whatever. It's there. Maybe you can work it out both ways. All right, that's going to do it for us on tonight's show. Please go to iTunes, rate and review us. Helps us out a lot. If you're a new listener and you haven't done that yet, go do that. Best Soccer Show on iTunes. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're out there in the world doing things, big stuff. We're not talking about curling. We're talking about soccer. So check us out. Help us out. Follow and like. Jared.
Listen, and I want emails. Who's the archer of the show? Don't let Jason win this just on just on principle, okay? I need feedback. Who's the archer of the show?
Well, really, he's an idiot. So
I'm kind of okay with that then.
Talk to you guys on Sunday. Bye.
Treat yourself and found loving.
Danger zone! Duh and or hello.